Welcome back. This is the Muzzle Break Podcast. I'm Josh, your host, and this is Brian, my co-host. We're here as we are every week to just bring you up to speed on the shop and talk to you about new firearms or history or whatever subject matter. It's our podcast. We like to just do whatever we want to do. This week, we're going to talk about World War II firearms. I've got some Allied firearms here. So this is probably going to be a part one of a part two series on different historical firearms. I'm a big history guy. Brian likes firearms. We were talking this week about the fact that, he is a guy that uses firearms as tools, right? And he used that in his military career. So you get a couple of cool different perspectives because I'm a history buff. I like history. There might be some things that I say that might be inaccurate, but we're not looking for total take it to the bank accuracy, I guess, on this podcast, as much as we're just having a conversation about learning. So what history and learning how guns work and operate and how they go together or take apart, or the background to all the guns or how they were used, that all falls under the category of like historical narrative and guncraft. Okay, so I think people are kind of weak, especially in the 2A community, about guncraft. They tend to find one thing that they really like and they stick to it. Okay, and that's all fine and good, and you should be a master of a set of tools, right? Like I 100% believe in that. But I think that you should also be able to expand your knowledge and understanding of firearms and where they came from, just for the fact that you might think something's new and beautiful and just, off the wall, innovative, but it might not be something that somebody came up with today. It was probably a design back in the day that they improved upon or whatever. So it's cool to see firearms from a historical perspective, but also from a function perspective. So if you take all of this stuff and throw it out on a battlefield, because in a battlefield, and you can corroborate this, on a battlefield, there's just like kind of shit strewn everywhere.
Yeah.
You might run into something that you might have little to no experience on, and you might need to use that something, right? And so I'm talking in a almost a doomsday kind of type perspective, where we're talking about if you had to come across this stuff and use it, do you have the knowledge in your repertoire to pick it up, be able to check if it's loaded or not? Like,
I was just fucking that. Like, I'm like, how do I? Because I'm so used to just AR, saw, 240, pistol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like getting my feet wet coming into the shop and like learning about all this shit because I'm like filled full of questions that
I like that. That's I think people need to see those conversations. That's kind of why we're having this podcast too, because you and I are talking from two completely different worlds. I never used a gun or fired a gun in anger, right? It's just not something that I was exposed to or privileged to. With most of you people don't know, is I signed up for the Navy during the surge, and I was discharged over medical reason. I had stage 4 cancer that they found during the in processing. I swore in. I stood in front of everybody, did the swearing process, and they gave me a sorry, thanks, but no thanks letter at the end of the whole thing because I had cancer. So that was never afforded to me to go and learn tactics and learn guns from a different standpoint, which you went and did, which is cool. And I like that perspective because you get to bring that to this and say, hey, this would be practical to use in XYZ, situation. Or I like this. I could see where the function, like we went out and shot the M1 Grand before we started filming this, because it was something that he had never done, something my sound guy never did. So I said, yeah, let's go shoot one, like just to have the experience, And immediately everybody has the same reaction when you go to something like this and say, oh, imagine carrying this, right? Imagine carrying this. So we're kind of getting down the road a little bit far, but I want to talk about a couple of new guns that we do have on the table. One is this Sandhawk from Nighthawk Custom. This is one of our number one selling 2011s. People look for this gun. People order this gun. Some lucky people find one on just like a drop ship order that we might have that fulfilled. It's pretty rare. These typically are sold before they hit the shelf. Okay, but I wanted you guys to see this. This is not a cheap gun by any stretch of the imagination. We're right around the 7K mark on these, especially if you got it all tricked out. It just depends on the different things, options that you could do, but right around there. So we've never had in the store an offering that would be a custom 1911 that was hand fitted, less than that mark. The 5 to 6, and like this is 7. So we've had a hard time filling the gap that's below that, which would Staccato would live in that $3,500 range. Those guys, they haven't wanted to work with us for whatever reason, which makes me laugh because we sell all like Wilson Combat and Guncrafter and Nighthawk and all these other custom guns. But Staccato, like
Thanks for the water bottle.
we totally so tell them that story. You got at least regale them with that story.
So we were at SHOT Show, and one of the guys here is a big Staccato fan.
Fanatic.
Yeah, Sonny's he loves Staccato.
He loves it.
And there was like 150 people at their booth. You couldn't even walk in there, and we got like, usually you walk around. Well, not usually. This is my first time, but you walk around, you get like stickers and like patches and stuff like that. And I saw like all these water bottles, like they're nice water bottles. They were on this like shelf, and I walked over and I'm like, I asked either Sonny or you, I'm like, do you think those are free? And you're like, yeah, just go take one. And Sonny's like, yeah, man, I want one of those. And of course,
they're high though.
Yeah,
like,
they're high.
Like you would be the only one to get.
But there was like so many people there that I was like, that old cartoon, ba-doom, 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 ba-doom. And I like went like this and made sure nobody was looking. I was just like, yep, this is mine. Fucking put it in my pocket and left. So thanks for the water bottle.
Yeah, we totally pilfered
Multi-million-dollar company, you can spare a water bottle.
Yep. Suck it, nerds.
Yeah.
So anyways, so we really haven't had something in that price range at the shop that's been available for our customer base. So this is a new announcement from Guncrafter Industries. I'm trying to get the lighting correct on this gun. This is a Springfield Prodigy that they take and they totally custom redo. So this has the custom fitted lower. It's a metal lower as opposed to the polymer one that comes with your original Prodigy. It comes with a new crown recessed barrel. It comes with their trigger job. It comes with their accurization kit. They accurize the slide and do all this other stuff to it to increase the reliability. And I don't know. Oh, those are Springfield mags still. I thought that they might change them out for Checkmate mags or something like that. But so this is MSRP $3,500. It is optics ready. It is completely tuned. It is completely reliable. It has their Hellcat lower, X2 lower on it, which is freaking amazing. It feels awesome. So if you're looking for something that is a completely tuned custom gun from Guncrafter Industries, it would be this Prodigy. Okay, so this is all hand tuned. You guys will freaking love these. They're in the pipeline. This is the first one. We literally got this like 2 hours before we shot this episode. So it will be available tomorrow in the shop. I know you guys won't see this until probably Monday, but freaking amazing. This is going to change a lot of stuff, the way that they've put this all together. So please come into the store, take a look. You're going to love this. Okay.
That way people don't have to spend, if you're not,
you're not spending
in the budget
$7,000. That's a cost-effective way to get into a custom handgun for sure. So thank you, Guncrafter, for letting us be one of the first ones to carry that. It looks awesome. This has been the last couple of months that I've been seeing pictures come over from their R&D department, and they're great. Those guys are tremendous as well. Any of those, a lot of these custom shops, I can't speak highly of. There's some that we're probably not going to ever do business with, but to each their own, and everybody conducts their business a little bit differently. So, no shade, but just wanted you guys to know that that was available and out there. Also, next month, the 22nd, that week, Radio Made Easy is going to be here. We had a big long segment about it last time. I'm not going to continue to bore you about the Radio Made Easy class other than to say, come to that class. It's already half filled. We have some seats left. Don't wait till the last minute, because this is always one that fills up at the last minute. We had to turn away a half a dozen people last time when they came. So sign up early so you get your spot. It's going to be awesome. Evan's an awesome teacher. The end. So I've got these guns on the table that we're going to talk about tonight, just for giggles. Like, we just wanted to talk about history. I think this is probably going to be a regular segment on the show, is just talking about historical firearms. Again, like I said, this is about gun-craft and learning how to manipulate firearms that you might not have been exposed to before. And this is to talk about history. Again, like I said, I'm going off my memory, so if I get something wrong, you guys can fact check me in the comments. I don't care. I have no shame. I will admit when I'm wrong. I will also challenge you when I'm right. And I'm right, what would you say? Probably 98% of the time, at least on gun stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like we've had some suspicious activity about other things in life, but I try hard enough, right? Like, I'm
Right.
a genuinely
Yes.
honest. I'm genuinely
What do you
honest.
think, Peter? 98%?
Peter, no, don't
A
like
soft 98 or a hard 98?
rock hard. Okay, so I guess how I want to do this is just kind of you ask me questions. You're gonna kind of pick up something on the table that you want to talk about, and we'll just start from the beginning. I know you had a lot of questions about the M1.
Yeah, we'll save that till
Garen,
last. We'll save that
you want to
till
say
last.
that's last?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So if something looks like you want to talk about it, well,
So
let's
all
have a
these
conversation.
pistols I just pulled out for Josh. He's got a case for them, and I know nothing about any of these pistols, and I'm kind of like intrigued to learn more about like World War II stuff. So we'll start with this one, like American. What?
So both of and I'll pick this one up too because it's its sister. These are both Webley revolvers, and these were first issued in World War One, and even before that. I think actually the tail end of the Boer Wars, or even fully on for the whole Boer Wars. I've got both the variations that would have been the most common that you would run into in World War II. This is the 38 Webley. And so what's interesting about Webley Scott was just they had a lot of interesting designs that they came up with during wartime. And this one is the most correct of the two that we have here. This is the medium frame. They made a smaller frame version of that for some pilots and things like that. But air crews would probably even be issued this on some of the bigger airplanes. And I think crew serve weapon teams would also get the smaller one here. So some. But the 45 here, the 45 Webley, that was a pretty standard sidearm issue for officers and things like that during World War II. This was you would see a lot of these, and this one's kind of interesting because it's a 45 Webley. A lot of these got brought back into the United States and were sold on the surplus market, and they were shaved down. Like, this one's been shaved down. You can see on the back end here where the cylinder is, and I'm going to open it up here. There's a the release. It's a top break, and that harkens back to the Smith and Wesson designs of the day, and the Schofield designs that would have been, they probably had Schofields. Again, this is where I'm like searching. I know that there were a lot of Schofield designs that were sent into Europe, like especially Russia had some top break designs like this. The problem with a top break is typically not real strong, and you can see in the American designs that we didn't go with that because we had more powerful ammunition. But this has a really beefy latch on the top. But this is always kind of the weakness of a top break is that eventually this, you'll shoot it and it'll hinge open, So all 6 shells will eject when you open this thing. So that's kind of nice. Like as
itself, it'll just fall out.
All the shells will spring out of the top of the cylinder. So as that plunger comes up, boom. So that's kind of nice. Where the American models of revolvers during World War II, they had a swing out cylinder, and then you'd have to manually push the rounds out with your finger. It's still a plunger, and all 6 rounds would come out. But this is kind of eliminating a step in manipulation. So this technology, like World War One, or even before, this was space age technology with the smokeless cartridges that were involved. But this one's been shaved down so that it will accept 45 cartridges, 45 ACP cartridges, or 45 rim cartridges. And we'll talk about those cartridges a little bit later here as we take a look at the Colt that I have on the table from World War II. So, but yeah, the Webley Scott, this is a Webley revolver. This is a Mark IV, I believe.
Is that the most common carried pistol in World War II?
For the English, it would have been, yeah, not for not for the Americans. No, we wouldn't have had any of these. You would see English troops with American weapons because of the Lend-Lease Act, and so we would send 1911. We sent a batch of 1911s over. Those were reserved, I think, for just officers only. But like regular troops would probably have something like this on their person. So yeah, that's kind of the English. You got the lanyard down here.
Yeah,
Everything
I was wondering,
had a lanyard.
what are they?
Okay, so like a lanyard was put on your suspenders, or a harness of some sort onto your body, and I think actually some of the lanyards actually crossed your body, so you would carry the gun like across if you were in a crew serve weapon like a tank or something like that, or an airplane where you had to reach and grab the pistol, or the lanyard would be down here, on that's something that comes back from trench warfare, where things are muddy and slippery and might fall out of your hands. You don't want that to dump into the mud. Those lanyards were just long enough so that they would fall down by your torso. So it's basically just to keep the gun on you. I still think
a tie off. It's basically a tie off. Like we used to tie a bunch of shit off.
Yeah. So I don't. I know that the Army is still requests lanyards. Like if you look at the Glocks and things that are issued, there's a lanyard loop on all of that stuff. Did you guys never lanyard any of your handguns?
Tied. Yeah, they did. Actually, now that you think about it, of course now they're like sophisticated. They have like the pigtail lanyards and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, if I remember correctly, yeah, a lot of people tied off there for that reason.
Yeah,
because you felt, where's your fucking gun? I don't know.
It's in a lake. It's in a lake next to you because you jumped out of an airplane. So yeah, that's these lanyard loops are a lot bigger. Typically, they had some kind of dog latch. You know how you have on your dog collars, kind of a dog carabiner type latch. So those are the Webley Scotts. I always thought that those were neat and interesting, and they're fairly rare because most of those actually stayed in circulation in the English arsenal after World War II. So to see them here in the U.S., fairly rare. Most of them that you see is the large frame here, because they were imported and they were easy for people to find shave them down and find the 45 ammunition to put in the backs of them. Like the 38 Webley Scott, that ammunition was never used around here. 38 Special, I think 3820, which was a Colt cartridge, would have actually been used. If an American got that, they would be issued 3820, which is an old Colt cartridge. We do have a Colt Lightning, that pump action rifle that's out there, that would have been involved in a 3820 type cartridge, so small pistol caliber cartridge. So yeah, that's the touch on the Webley Scott.
What is this? Russian.
Yeah, that's so. Like I said, this is all Allied stuff. So, so that's a Nagant revolver, not a Mosin Nagant. Mosin Nagant. So the way that the Russians would name things, it was all an attribute to their designer, and that's been a normal case until you know the 60s, when Stoner came out with the AR designs. It was Armalite rifle, Armalite rifle number 14, 15, 16, all this stuff. It's typically been custom to name a rifle or a handgun or whatever after its designer, right? So Nagant was I think he was, I'm pretty sure he was a Swiss designer, actually. And he came up with this revolver, and this would have been pre 1900 that they came out. What's interesting about these revolvers is that they use a sealed cartridge. So when you look at their 7.62 cartridge that they use in this gun, the brass actually comes up over the bullet. Okay, so it's completely sealed. And the reason for that is as you rotate and cock this cylinder, it's double action too. So like pre 1900 to have a double action revolver, that was the thing, man. That was the staccato, the Nighthawk. That was the thing to have, right? Okay. So I want you to watch as I pull back on the hammer and have the cylinder rotate. And you're not going to see that on camera all that much. We gotta buy another camera so it's like tabletop so you guys can see over top of us. But as I pull this hammer back, watch what the cylinder does. See how it rotates and it moves forward. So this is actually that cartridge is crimped in a way that it makes a perfect seal onto the barrel. And this part that is right in front of the chamber on the cylinder is called the forcing cone. Okay. And that is what, tries to basically mate up on any revolver, the chamber, and there's a small jump there. And you want that to be as close as possible. That, that helps the accuracy of all of that. So with these Nagant revolvers, they would seal all the way. So you use a really underpowered cartridge, and it's supposed to be super, super efficient because it seals all the way up. Okay. The secondary thing that helps this design, or not helps this design, but makes this design unique, is it's the only revolver design, or one of the only revolver designs, that you can actually suppress. Okay. So during Vietnam, the Vietnamese would thread and suppress these guns for assassination purpose. I don't know how many were actually used in assassinations. That'd be a great Clint Smith question. I'm not even sure that he knows. But in the comments, one of you guys get down here, the Nagant revolver. How many people were actually assassinated with one of these? Probably like little to none. I've shot them suppressed. They're cool. They're quiet. There's like no smoke. But that's the problem with suppressing a revolver, is you've got the gap between the chamber of the cylinder and the forcing cone. So
is that where all the gas comes out?
Yeah, that's the other reason too. Like if you put your hand up around a revolver like this and pull a trigger, your hand's not in front of the barrel, but you will either burn the shit out of your hand or completely split your hand open. Like I had I had a guy with it was a 500 Smith that he not in the shop, he showed me the aftermath, but he was drunk. Okay, like good work, and he pulled the trigger on a Smith, and that split the gas from that split his hand clear open like a freaking honey cut ham, and it looked horrible. So yeah, don't ever put your hands up beyond the cylinder, because there's lots of really high pressure hot gases that come flying out of it. And if the cylinder's not timed right, you'll get what's called shaving, or shaving of the bullets, so it'll shave off some of the lead and spit it out. And like 22s that happened, father son, duos all out on the range, and the kids getting splashed with all the lead that's getting shaved off off of great grandpa's pistol, and dad's having a great time, and the kid's like, ah, he's screaming, so Nagant revolver again. It's just interesting that all of this stuff was basically pre 1900, and when we fought the Great War in World War One, everybody basically stopped designing stuff. Like, they were like, this is the end of the war, this is the end of all wars, so we're gonna have uh, we're going to have zero new innovation with war technology. And that's kind of like the interesting thing of World War II, is we went through, a peacetime that basically enabled the entire world to take a deep breath. And then when Hitler decided to invade Poland and France, everybody was flat-footed. All the stuff that they had kind of built up was just World War One technology, because people basically walked away from building up a standing army. So it really caught everybody flat-footed. So this is kind of the stuff that you would probably expect to see, at the very beginning of the war.
Yeah.
Everybody, taking the arsenal.
And then it's like, hurry up and make shit. So
Yeah. So like what you've got in your hand there is probably the poorest made, with maybe some arguable exceptions, the poorest made.
Which can I don't know what camera.
Yeah. You could point it like, yeah, there you go. So this is probably the poorest made Smith & Wesson of all time, and they're called the Victory model. And so because there was a huge push to arm everybody, because World War II was going on for a couple of years before we got involved, we were selling a lot of firearms to England, just like we did in World War One. So Smith & Wesson basically takes the contract call to make a bunch of 38 revolvers for either policing force, MP, shore patrol, like all of those different duties.
Pilots, maybe.
I don't know if pilots. I'm guessing
US pilots?
maybe. Yeah, this was definitely U.S. Like, this one's even property, U.S. property. GHD is what's stamped on the top of that. So a bunch of agencies and wartime agencies and things that probably didn't have didn't carry rifles. That these might have been just people that were rear echelon type people, would have been given Victory models. Now you can tell that they are a World War II Victory model because there's a V. That's where they get the Victory model name, is there's a V here on the bottom of the tang. And it's not really it's not really refined. I mean, these are typically pretty rough. This one's actually a pretty nice model, or a pretty nice example, but really plain stocks. Like, there's no cross checkering on any
There's
of
no
the
grip
stocks.
or
There's
anything.
no, it's just smooth. Like, you could tell these were the stamping of the Smith & Wesson, even the stamping of Made in the USA. All of that stuff is kind of poor. You know what I mean? It's fast. It
Were
was
they
done.
just like hurrying up to
Man,
try to get
they were
pumping them out?
slamming these out, like, and that's the problem though too, is like that I know that I'm gonna have people calling me, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have, like, Clint will probably text me, and he'll probably be like, hey brother, give me that Smith Victory, and like, no, sorry, you just don't see them all that much. I don't know if a lot of them got destroyed, or if they got sent out to different. After the war, there was a big rundown of all the surplus stuff, and so a lot of countries got our old surplus, war stuff. So this Victory model is just really interesting to me because it shows U.S. manufacturers, they made them cheap, so that they were able to get them in people's hands. But even though that they were probably the poorest made Smith, and cheaply made Smith, it's still, like, man, it's comparable to things that you would probably get today, from some of the lesser manufacturers. It really isn't even a nice gun at that point.
Do you think that was issued to somebody before?
Yeah, absolutely, because it has that GHD, and I probably have it written down somewhere in some of my logs what that meant, because I research a lot of these guns just to kind of find out where they went to and came.
Backstory
Yeah, the
and
backstory, the provenance with them. So that's just another cool piece of history. But these are all revolvers. You would have seen a lot of revolvers on the Allies side. The Axis side, though, was kind of interesting because they did put a lot of money and thought and time. Well, like the Germans were kind of like the Borg in a way. You guys can take the Star Trek reference, right? So they assimilated a lot of people. So maybe one of these times I'll bring in a bunch of the German stuff that I have from World War II, and we could talk about that because there was no real standardization of sidearms for the Germans. They were basically like, "Hey, we're going to go invade this place, and then we're going to take their sidearm. We're going to take over their weapons manufacturer, and then their sidearms are just going to be given to whatever." So like CZ, FEG, Walther, which was already German, but Browning, FN, all of those companies that got assimilated by the Germans, all made a different type of firearm. A logistic nightmare, for the Germans in World War II because
Luger?
they had the Luger. They had all kinds of things that had all kinds of different ammunition. The U.S. had you either had 38 special or you had 45 ACP. Hard stop. This gun, this Colt, the 1917 Colt. This is World War II issue, but this was also made in World War One. These all used 45 ACP on moon clips. I have a big episode that we shot last year with Clint that I'm finalizing about the 1917 revolvers. Smith and Wesson made a version of these, and Colt made a version of these, and these were really, really popular, especially with paratroopers. You look at a lot of the paratroopers during that time; they'd have all of these moon clips clipped to their gear. You look at some of the pictures, and you're like, "What's that? What's going on?" And it's these moon clips for this gun because it was easy. You could boom, knock them out, 6 more shots. 1911 only had 7. They were definitely difficult for the U.S. to make and source, even though that they were made in World War One. A 1911 was still fairly rare on the battlefield as far as like officers would get those, tank crews would get those. A lot of people that had like they would be categorized as special, needs or not special needs, but special unit, crew served weapons and things like that. But you would probably find more of these out there. They're probably more prolific. So same with the M1 Garand. That was like the high technology. You'd see a lot of Eddie Stones, like I have back here, P14 Eddie Stones. That was our English design that we made here in Pennsylvania. And these were really sought after by the troops to have. The Army got these, and like if you got shipped over to the islands to do island hopping with the Marines, you had a bolt action rifle for the first almost year.
In the Pacific?
Yeah, in the Pacific. It wasn't until later that they got M1 Garands, or Garans, sorry.
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
So John Garand was the designer of the M1 Garand, however you want to say it. I believe he was a Canadian. But this was, the rifle that Patton called the greatest device, or what did he say? Implement that wartime implement that was ever devised. It's an awesome rifle. Which one do you want to talk about? You want to talk about the Enfield? We got that popsicle Nagant too out back there. You
talk about that one.
Keep talking.
That one right there.
The Enfield.
Yeah.
So this is a
the U.S.
Nope, this would be Great Britain. So this is a 1918 Mark III Enfield. I can pull this up for you. This is for sale in the shop. It's got the brass butt plate, so it's an early one. It's a really nice looking gun. I do think it got polished at some point in time, but like, who cares, right? As long as somebody hasn't really gone crazy and taken off like cartouche marks, and there's all that stuff is still on this gun. So, this was the gun to have. Even the Americans loved this, in World War One, because it had a huge capacity. You had 10 rounds, where Springfield '03 had 5. It was easy to load. You could load from stripper clips, even though, we were talking about magazines. Why didn't you have magazines like an AR, right? Like, we were talking about that almost. And this does have a magazine that you would drop out if you needed to clean it, but there's a stripper clip patch here at the top.
So you can load them that way.
Well, the standard operating procedure would be that you would load that with stripper clips. That you wouldn't take this magazine off and load it. You would load it with the stripper clips. So this also has a magazine cutoff for it. Again, all of this stuff is different war theory. So they thought, guys are going to waste a bunch of ammunition. So your first sergeant would tell you, hey, we're just single shot only. And you turn on the magazine cutoff, and you could only load 1 round at a time. When you took that magazine cutoff, you'd take that off, then you'd be able to, volley fire. They called it the mad minute. You'd shoot 10 rounds as fast as you could out of this gun. So, this was technology was in the gun industry, or in the gun world, where it was moving fast. Basically, at the turn of the century, we went from 50 years earlier just shooting each other with muskets, then black powder, patch and ball, and all that stuff, to actually having it like a repeating rifle like this. So pretty cool. And then not shortly after, we have the M1 come onto the scene. And this came in, very end of World War One, and
they did have it.
Yeah, and it didn't really see any. It was just right tail end of everything, and yeah. So
standard issue, though, like for infantrymen.
No, not yet, not until World War II.
So everyone that got off like the boats and shit on D-Day had.
Yeah, those are all Army guys, right?
They're all
either carrying. Okay, so they're carrying either M1 Garand,
machine gun.
Like a BAR or a Thompson machine gun, an A1, Thompson A1, and the 03 Springfields were still a thing. Like, it was a mix of stuff, but this was the weapon to have. Like, you shot it, right? What was your initial reaction?
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, you go from awesome. Like a 5-shot bolt action rifle, and somebody hands you an 8-shot semi-automatic full powered, right? Like,
what was the we'll say the home team, the Nazis, since they're the home team. Okay. Well, we were the away team, right?
Yeah, okay.
So what was the home, like, what was their answer to the, like, what did they carry? Like, what was their M1 Garand?
The Gewehr 43 and 44s. They ended up later in the war. They were a semi-automatic box-fed magazine-fed semi-automatic 8mm rifle. They were really expensive for them to build, and really tough for them to build. They knew about this. They knew that that's the thing, is we had the industry. That's the cool thing about America, is like, yeah, we like to innovate and things like that, but the industry that we have, the ability to build things, has always been our
superior to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, because you get so maybe some special some paratroop forces had those Gewehr rifles, or specialized special operations teams had. The Germans were really good about special operations stuff, right? Like, so
wasn't there SS guys like
like SS teams and paratrooper teams, like those guys were all cutting edge technology stuff. So they had Sturmgewehr 44s, they had Gewehr 30 40 43s and stuff like that. But really, what we didn't really we didn't really have a doctrine until kind of a little bit later of special forces. You know what I mean? Which is kind of interesting. Like the 10th Mountain, like
Yeah.
those were kind of some of the first special forces guys. Camp Carson. My great uncle, he was the first graduating class out of Camp Carson that learned how to ski and shoot. Like they had literally built the camp, and he went to the Battle of Attu, which was in the Aleutian Islands, which was snow. I mean, it was, you're talking Alaska, and they're
Yeah.
fighting the Japanese. And then he went to France after that because he came back with what was not the 10th mountain. I mean, he was the 10th mountain, but it wasn't called the 10th mountain at that point in time. And he came back, he got his jump wings, and then jumped on the south of France with pack howitzer in a glider. Like, no freaking thank you, right?
Yeah.
Like he did he fought in both theaters, which is wild. But I digress. We'll get back to talking about this guy. So what were your first impressions when you got to shoot this?
I mean, I always wanted to shoot one. Everyone talk, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like one of
for
those
sure.
guns where it's like, I don't know, it just seems like one of those, it's like the most, I don't know if I want to call it the most famous gun, but it kind of is
There's
like,
so much lore to it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? There's so much stigma to it. I mean, it really revolutionized warfare. Where you're running around and you have, you can quickly load the magazine. Like if you got good at taking those
yeah,
end block clips and
jamming them in, yeah,
dumping them into the box magazine, you would be deadly really quickly. Especially if somebody is running around with something like this and they're trying to fill a box magazine with regular stripper clips. That's gonna be
So now, do they make a shorter version?
of the
Grand?
M1.
Yeah.
Well, so like that's kind of they made a tanker version supposedly. Whether that ever got issued or not is like a debate. I think that was just like a post-war thing that they put together just to, you know, they said it was real. And they had converted some of these, like the Navy I know had converted some of these to 308 whenever we started going to the 308 cartridge as well. So yeah, and I think that those had shorter barrels and shorter gas operation, systems to them. So what else you got questions on it?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you. Was there a mounting system to where you could mount a sight on those?
Yeah, so like there's a couple of options. It would have been the A4 models. So any A4 models of either the O3 or the M1 Garand would have been um, something that you would be able to mount a sight to. And so they would utilize this part of the site or the receiver. And up here, I'm not quite sure, and I don't know if they had a screw like we were talking about. You carried an M1A.
Yeah,
In
we had
in this,
M14 or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
M14. So they have like a screw here and a screw on the side to kind of stabilize it for the M14. It was something similar to that, and,
Yeah.
and they used a fixed 4-power Bosch and Loam scope for a lot of those. And who else did they make? Bosch and Loam, Lyman made some too for the A4. So there were a couple of different mounting options, and then there was actually like these actually got fitted with some early night vision too, which was like monstrous. Like take one of those old school cassette recording cameras that your mom used to chase you around with and like freaking duct tape it to the top of that. It was like look freaking ridiculous. Yeah. So
Yeah, I couldn't imagine like getting off the boats. Like I don't know. It's just, you know what I mean? It's like one of those guns where it's like, dude, this gun's been through a lot of shit.
yeah.
Like,
Well, at that point it was new. Like, you know what I mean? It was new technology.
So
Probably gave you a lot of confidence.
Springfield just started pumping these out.
Yeah, so you got Springfield, Harrington, and Richardson. You had Remington making them. You had man, you're gonna press me.
Then
for
why
all
is
these.
Springfield always like? Is that like the goat of them?
Yeah, so like Springfield. I mean, Springfield is always or was always our national armory. All the way up until basically Vietnam. Um, they were the National Armory, so they had the main portion of all the contracts. 1911s, M1 Garands, any of that stuff was made at Springfield because they were basically it. And so you're gonna test my knowledge though, like on what happened post war, but it mainly had to do with why they fell by the wayside and whatnot. It mainly had to do with all these new developments in polymers and Stoner's design with the AR 15 was, it was groundbreaking, and it wasn't in their wheelhouse really to do anything like that. So
Now,
they
what
kind of went down the
every
down.
gun has kind of a con. What was like? Did they ever have like? Was there because you know how some guns is like, oh, that gun tends to do this, or
Yeah.
was there any?
Well, I mean, not, at that point, no, right? Like there were no that's why that's why Patton praised it so much, was that no, this really didn't have any flaws, other than like the capacity,
Round
eight
capacity?
rounds, and then shortly thereafter the Italians started tweaking this and putting box fed magazines into it, because that's where the world was going. Once the Sturmgewehr 44 came onto the scene, they have what would be a traditional loadout where you had a chest rig with magazines, and you were able to change the magazines out quickly. That was, the Germans saw that and they said, okay. And we kind of knew that was going to happen too with the M1 carbine. That was kind of the precursor of or our answer to some of that stuff. So yeah, it all kind of melds together if you look at it through history. But this was like a dominating force because they were easy to produce, they were super deadly, super accurate. I mean, this gun, we were out there shooting, and it's like a freaking laser gun.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, is like it had a peep aperture sight. You could line it up. You could train somebody on this really quickly and make it super accurate, super deadly. Give you lots of really awesome ammunition. With a 150 grain bullet, traveling at 3,000 feet per second, you're gonna vaporize people.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's cool.
Till the MG42. I remember playing like the Call of Duty, like when I was growing up, and like that was like because I knew nothing about World War II or just like history stuff in school or whatever. But I remember like playing Call of Duty, and like there was one thing where you had to like get off the boat or whatever, and then the MG42 opened up. I'm like, what the fuck is that thing, dude?
Yeah, but like I said, still most of every standard troop at that point in time had a bolt action rifle. To have a semi-automatic rifle that was like an auto loader, man, that's just you were a freaking spaceman coming off of those boats.
And these are basically what we know now as the M14.
Yeah, essentially they are the same in the way that they function, in the way that the bolts function. You could tell, you could look at that, and you tore down yours, so you knew.
It's the same, like
it's the same teardown with the exception of the magazine, right? So you pull the trigger group out, and then you pull the rest of the bolt assembly apart. It's a long stroke gas system on this, so the op rod runs the length of the wood there, and yeah. So
do they have bayonets on them?
Yeah, 100%. There's bayonet lug right there.
Just stabbing.
Could you imagine? Yeah. Well, what's cool is like the first Garand bayonets were off of the 03 Springfields, and they were big stickers, man. They were like, you're gonna get a freaking sword. And so I have one that's been ground down. The first Garand bayonets were actually ground down 03 bayonets that were monstrous. They were like, yeah.
I wonder if any like
somebody's arm off.
Germans ever got their hands on any of these. Like they're just like, what the hell is it?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Again, they were always really good at looking. So the Russians were not, because of their mentality, because of their politics, all of that stuff. The Russians were not inventive about anything. They would take something, and not saying that they still aren't, but they kind of still aren't. It's just kind of the way that they take the first generation technology and they reverse engineer it, right? And some things end up being really, really good, and some things end up being like
Trash.
shit, right? So the Russians had the SVT-40. Simonov was a very smart guy. He was a very smart designer. Um, and he used some of this in the idea. Sorry, I just took I just drank some Coke Zero. Man, that gets me every time. Jeez, oh man. Burp it into the microphone. I'm sorry for all you individuals that are watching us right now. So, but they use an op rod design. It was more akin to what he later designed in the SKS rifle. So it was a long stroke, but it was like two pieces as opposed to this is where it's a linkage. So he had the SVT-40. It was temperamental. The gas port was small. It had some issues, but it had a monster round. The 7.62 by 54R is a man killer. That round has killed more people than any round ever. I think. I mean, they're still using it in Ukraine. I mean, it's still like a PKM. Still uses one of those. You were probably shot at with 7.62 by 54R, 100%. You're right. So they had that rifle. It was okay. It didn't work all that well. This thing would work like mud, like conditions, whatever. I think it's because of the location of the gas port being pretty much underneath the gun as opposed to on top of the gun, where rain, moisture, things like that could get into it. I don't really know. Somebody smarter than me is going to be able to tell me why this works so well, but this thing just freaking chugs along for sure.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
It's definitely like I said.
What other questions? You gotta give me some other questions. Like I said, you started asking me questions, and then I was like, "Oh, save it for the podcast. You can."
I wonder how often they would have to clean them.
I would imagine on any downtime. Like, how often did you clean your weapon when you were in?
I mean,
like you get back to the base.
Yeah.
Even though you didn't shoot it.
Yeah. I mean, you wipe it down depending, but there was also like the helicopters would do damage to your shit. You know what I mean? When they picked you up and the dust would be flying.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I wonder, because some of those battles lasted, you know what I mean?
Days.
Yeah. It's
Days.
Like, did this gun have any jamming problems? How much, like back then, you know what I mean?
Not
like
really.
oil, like did they carry the fucking oil on them? Did they like?
Yeah, so like because this is an internal gas system, like the AR is an internal gas system. It's a short stroke, or I'm sorry, it's a gas impingement system. Whew, it's I don't know. It's getting a little bit late, so I'm having to think a bit more about it. But so you've got gases being siphoned off back into the bulk carrier group, and it's all internal. Whereas this is external to the op rod. All of that stuff is external to it, and it's beefy. I mean, like the op rod, this is big. Like it's a big, and it only has to travel, a minimal distance. Whereas, a gas impingement gun is unlocking, and then it's traveling the entire length of the buffer tube. So. As far as reliability goes, I don't. I mean, they use this in World War II in Korea and even into Vietnam. I mean, it has a really long service life, and it's. I don't know of anything that's negative, right?
They used them in Vietnam.
I think when they started as the policing action, they had a bunch of stuff that was World War II surplus that they put in. So like Thompsons, BARs, M1 Garands. They didn't want to bring out the fancy stuff until we actually had the full-on army, involved in that action.
Can't give your hand away.
Right, exactly. But it didn't turn out so well.
Yeah.
I mean, we still won that war, but unpopular opinion, we still won the Vietnam War. Sorry. You nerds suck. It was just basically politicians and dirty freaking hippies. And like, don't get me wrong. I have some friends that are dirty freaking hippies, but sometimes you guys suck with the war program stuff. You know what I mean? Like, just chill.
There's a funny shirt. Give war a chance. Just give it a chance.
I saw one that said, violence isn't the answer, but life's not a question. I like that. Violence isn't the answer. Life's not a question.
Like, yeah, I mean, as far as the World War II, like I like to watch movies and stuff like that, and I've always wanted to, like, shoot one, and everyone talks about them, like history buff people, and it's always on like the History Channel and stuff like that. So hopefully down the road I can own one, but I think it's like one of those, like I said in the beginning, it's not like it's the best gun. Like, it's not like, you know what I mean? It's one of those guns where just everyone knows what it is.
It's
It's iconic gun. Yeah.
It's iconic for sure.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I was interested in it, and I think it, like everyone says, it kind of like turned the table on the war.
Yeah. 100%. Yep. 100%. And more technology. Yep.
I couldn't imagine jumping in with that thing, how long it is.
And just clack your teeth.
Well, yeah, like
knock you out.
I wonder if they even had like weapons cases when they jumped in.
They did. A lot of those were like leg bags. If you looked at on the Band of Brothers, they had these leg bags, and a lot of those guys that jumped in, those leg bags tore off.
Yeah, it's like, what do you do?
They jumped in, and they're like, "What do you got?"
1911.
A pack of matches and a knife. First sergeant, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, First Sergeant.
And like, they were fucking just like when they jumped in, they were just like linking up. Some of them were linking up with people that didn't even know.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's your name? Bill.
Yeah,
oh, fucking cool. Whatever.
Yeah. What do you got, Bill? I got chewing gum. Yeah. Yeah. We've all like almost assembled a Megazord out here because we just got a bunch of random shit.
I want to go home.
Yeah. It is amazing that, we're talking about there's basically 75 years of paratroop, technology, and you were involved in some of the tail
some of the
end
years
stuff.
Yeah, we actually had a Nazi flag that was captured in our day room, and it was signed by all the dudes that, like,
that's
were
awesome.
there.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Wild shit.
And of course, when you're there, you're young, and it's like, oh, cool, Nazi flag, and then you just fucking go about your day, and now it's like, dude, I wish I would have taken a picture of that shit, because it's like those shit like that you're never gonna see again.
Right?
It's fucking cool.
Yep.
But yeah, it was like, I said, I can't imagine jumping in with that. Them dudes must have been like puking on the plane.
Well, they did. They gave him like air
medicine,
sickness. Yeah, air sickness
pills. I'm sure it wasn't air sickness. It was like, oh, now we're fucking like, yeah, you can go get a sex change. Like, back then, it's like fucking dudes carrying ammunition in their mouth and shit, like going to fight, and times have changed.
Yep.
Yeah,
100%. Well, I think we're done for the night. So thanks for tuning in, guys. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.